Hi, friends. Thank you for tuning in to the Concussion Coach podcast. I'm Bethany Lewis, the Concussion Coach. I'm a neurological occupational therapist and certified life coach, and I specialize in guiding people through their concussion recovery journey. I am passionate about helping people understand their injury, speed up their recovery, and reclaim control over their life post-concussion. The purpose of this podcast is to help increase awareness of concussions and the impact they can have on a person's life, and to bring hope to people who have suffered a concussion and those who love them. I firmly believe that sharing stories and knowledge about concussions will bring important light and understanding to this misunderstood and often invisible injury. The information in this podcast is meant to bring that awareness and hope and is not meant as medical advice. The opinions shared are those of the interviewees and my own. If you are suffering with lingering concussion symptoms, I have created a concussion coaching program specifically for you. I will be your mentor to guide you through your recovery journey, offering help with understanding and managing your symptoms, setting achievable goals, and learning how to manage your own thoughts and nervous system in order to get control over your life again. If this program sounds like something that would help you or someone you love, sign up for a free consultation. In the consultation, you'll get valuable information and resources and gain hope for your future. Sign up for your free consultation at the link in the show notes or at my website, www.theconcussioncoach.com. Hi, friends. Welcome back to the Concussion Coach podcast. Today, I am thrilled to interview my guest, Allison Moir-Smith. Allison is a therapist, author, wife, mother, concussion survivor, and now artist. She is the facilitator of the monthly online Concussed Moms Support Group. She lives in Manchester by the Sea, Massachusetts, with her family. And at the end, I'll have her share how to get in touch with her and how to follow her on Instagram. So I'm so excited for you to be here. Thank you so much, Allison, for coming on today.
My pleasure. I'm really happy to talk with you. Thanks for having me.
Yes, so excited. So why don't we start off with you just sharing a little bit more about yourself? I know we got a little snippet there, but where are you from originally? Did you grow up there in Massachusetts? And what do you love?
I'm from Hanover, New Hampshire, where the home of Dartmouth College, and that will play a role in my concussion story. I was there, grew up there, moved to New York, was a fabulous single girl in New York City, and then got married and moved to Boston. And then we moved out here to raise our kids. It's a small village, looks a lot like Nantucket, about 45 minutes north of Boston on the water. It's lovely here.
Beautiful. Yeah, that sounds quite idyllic. Were you a therapist? Well, tell me what kind of therapist you are, and were you a therapist prior to your injury?
Yes. So when my lovely husband, who we've been married for many, many years now, proposed to me, I was 35 and he was 35, and I immediately became a basket case. And I didn't understand why, because I've been looking for somebody to marry. And then he proposed and I became this wreck. So I kind of took myself on as a client. And since then, I've been counseling brides and grooms online for 20 plus years. My website is called Emotionally Engaged, and my book is called Emotionally Engaged, A Bride's Guide to Surviving the quote unquote happiest time of her life. And I've been on Today Show and Good Morning America. So that's my career.
Oh my goodness, that's so cool. Wait, so what kind of is it? Did you study
Yes, so I'm trained as I have a master's in counseling psychology.
And you were working in that prior to taking yourself on as a client?
No, we met in graduate school, my husband and me, and and then I used myself as a client while I was in training, and then opened this business because there was nothing. This was before the internet where you could Google anything, so I was one of the first.
That is really cool and so interesting. I don't know. As you say that, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember when the engagement part wasn't too problematic for me, but like shortly after I was married, I was like, wait, all of a sudden I just felt like I had way more insecurities come up than I ever had before. I was like, what is this? Like, I've got this great guy. Like, why am I all of a sudden? So anyway.
No, that's exactly it, Bethany. Either it happens during the engagement or it happens in the first year of marriage. So I try to catch everybody.
That's so cool.
That's how I make my living.
I thought that was just a weird me thing. So now I'm going to have to read your book. Thanks for that. I didn't know you had one. That's really cool. So Emotionally Engaged, that's what it's called?
Yes.
Very cool. All right. Well, that's really interesting. And tell us a little bit more about what happened with the injury, and let's dive into the story here.
Yeah. So we went up to teach our kids how to ski. I've been skiing my entire life on the Dartmouth Mountain. It's called the Dartmouth Skiway. So I'm quite a good East Coast skier. And we were on a Bunny Route Plus, and the kids went down and my husband went down in front of me, and I was skiing cleanup, and I was wearing a helmet for the first or second day of my life. And I was standing still, and somehow my skis just slipped out from underneath me and my head smacked backwards.
Oh my gosh.
Well, it's just one of those things that happen. And, being the mom, I skied down and I wasn't going to wreck our ski day. So we took another couple runs. And I was wobbly, but I'm a mother and I kept on going. And that's what's really different about concussed moms is that we don't stop our lives. We don't stop caring for our families. We don't stop normal life from happening for our children. So we kept skiing, even though I, of course, should not have, but I did. And then when we packed up for the afternoon at 4 o'clock, when the mountain closed, I said to my husband, I think I might have gotten concussion. And I made a deal with him. If I puke on the way drive, the 2.5 hour drive down, we'll go to the emergency room. But if I don't, we're going straight home because kids have homework. They got to go. It's Sunday. They got to do school. They've got to do homework. They've got to get to bed early. So if I didn't puke, I didn't go. And thus begins my story.
Oh, man. Okay. So how old were your kids at this point?
My kids were 9 and 11, and I was 49.
Okay. So you didn't mention it to your husband until the end of the ski day. And then when you did, was it the deal that you made? Was that like you coming in like, hey, this is what I'm going to do? Or was he like, hey, we should go to the hospital? And you were like, no, only if I puke. How did that play out?
I don't really remember, but I do remember asking him on the drive down at night in the winter, are those headlights really bothering you? And he goes, yeah, I'm really tired. I said, no, but they're really bothering me. He goes, no, you're probably just tired. So we just didn't know anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nobody does.
Why would
it happens to you? Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So true. Okay. So how long after that did you start? I mean, that's a pretty immediate thing that you're noticing. And actually, sorry, before I continue down the mountain here, while you were still on the mountain and skiing, did you notice anything? Was it more challenging or was your balance off? Anything like that during the rest of the ski day?
No, I don't really remember a thing.
Okay.
So it probably was all of that, but I just remembered not wanting to wreck the ski day.
Uh-huh. Okay.
And not wanting to make my injury or whatever it was a center of attention. It was a happy day. I didn't want to wreck it. And this is the story I hear in our Concussed Moms Support Group all the time. All we do as mothers is try to keep normalcy happening to the detriment of ourselves.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, what symptoms ended up coming up from this other than the light sensitivity? How did it kind of play out?
Pretty quickly after, I remember feeling just disturbed. The light sensitivity started, the noise sensitivity started. We were in the middle, of course, of a kitchen renovation, and we were living in the house during it. So I noticed that every time the contractor's nail guns went, I was jumpy and fidgety and disturbed by it all. And it just kept on growing over time. I remember going to pick up the kids from school, which of course I should not have been driving, but I had a brain injury and didn't know it. And it's a small town. You don't go more than 20 miles an hour anywhere. But I remember trying to back into a parking spot and I just couldn't do it. Bizarre little things started adding up. And then all of a sudden the light sensitivity became unbearable. On comes the hat and the sunglasses and off go the lights in our house. And then I know it just started snowballing. And it wasn't like the football players on the field who were immediately concussed. And I keep on the symptoms shine immediately. And I'm understanding this more and more, correct him if I'm wrong, is that women's symptoms can bloom slowly over time. And it felt like mine were just magnifying as the days went by.
Interesting. I am aware that the symptoms can come out over time, but I didn't realize that was specifically like a woman versus a man experience, but I can see how that could play out. That's super interesting. And that was your experience, that it just
So finally by Thursday by Wednesday I was out at a birthday lunch. So I kept on going, obviously. I was out to lunch with girlfriends and I remember the winter sun coming in my eyes and I had to shield my eyes and then I had to put my back to the sun. And finally they said, you've got to call your doctor. So
I love friends.
Everybody needs their girlfriends.
Intervention time. Let's make you go see their doctor. Yeah. Okay. So, and had you at this point, like, obviously your friends were aware of it. You would talk to people like, hey, I'm having these experiences. Did everybody kind of point it to the concussion? Did you recognize, oh, it all started from that ski day?
Yes. Well, I had a significant fall. So I pointed it back. And I also had a concussion at age 14. I'd flipped over the handlebars. I didn't know that once you have one, you're more susceptible to another, you're more susceptible to another. I didn't know any of that, but the light sensitivity was all of a sudden making sense. I remember from my middle school graduation being in photos and just couldn't keep my eyes open because of light sensitivity. So it all started slowly pieced together through my sludgy brain. So I haven't spoken directly the symptoms, but the symptoms were light sensitivity, noise sensitivity, headache. And that's what I knew. That's what I knew. But then when I got to the doctor's office 4 days, 5 days later, I'm very tall and she's very small. And she had me do a balance test, walk across the room, and I almost crushed her. So my balance was off. I didn't know that. I didn't, and I know now that I had whiplash. I didn't know that at the time, and she didn't know that at the time. Then all the memory and language problems just kept on growing and growing and growing.
Mm-hmm. And brain fog too, it sounded like it was a sludge that you were going through, you didn't even realize?
Sludge, yes. And I remember vividly, one of the worst moments was that following weekend. I fell on a Sunday. So the next weekend, it was a holiday weekend, and all the other families around us were off doing fun things. And my kids were in bed with me. I had my head under the covers, and they were reading Harry Potter to me. It's such a sweet and such a tragic memory. They were scared. I was just trying to survive it. Mm-hmm. And I remember fading in and out and in and out of Harry Potter. It was just it's a beautiful, sweet, tragic memory of mine and theirs as well, because they were very, very frightened, especially because the doctor said, go home and rest. Just go home and rest. And this is, I know, maddening. 7 years ago. This is 7 years ago. So go home and rest. And since then, she and I talk about it every year at my annual physical. I didn't do the thing that some people do, which is fire the doctor that gives you the bad advice. I decided to stick it out with her and educate her.
Fantastic. I love that so much. And was she receptive to it? Like, she was open to hearing it?
I've become a huge advocate in this world, and I keep on telling her all that I'm doing. And I said, listen, you need to know this, you need to know that, you need to know that women are different, you need to have a whole team. And finally this year, we're 7 years into this, finally said, Allison, you've got to trust me. I have a whole team that I send people to. And I really don't think I treated you as badly as you think I did. Said, well, we didn't do a lot of care for me, but I'm glad I've changed you and hopefully your colleagues.
Yes. Fantastic. I love that very much. Thank you for being an advocate. It's needed. So
yes, now that I can do it, I do it. But there were many years I couldn't.
Yes. Well, and I'm excited to hear about how you got to this point. So, but first tell me, and it sounds like you didn't know very much about concussions prior to this experience. And what about this experience surprised you about having a concussion? Like what?
That it kept on going and it kept getting worse. I rested the way my doctor told me to do. And I would email her every once in a while and say, what can we do? And she said, neurologists don't do anything and I have nothing else to offer you. This was 7 years ago, people, 7 years ago. So I was doing what my doctor told me, which was rest, and I wasn't getting better. And I remember vividly one day we were living through a kitchen renovation, so that was terrible. I remember one day when they came in to sand the new floors, my husband literally had to rush me out of the house because I couldn't bear the sanding noise, the screaming of the sanders. So all these scary things kept on happening, and we had no guidance. So I am a walking don't. And what became so hard about this is that 8 months in, my doctor finally offered some physical therapy, which I go, that's weird, but obviously now I know that's the number one thing that you can do to help you. But again, I'm a walking don't because I was treated for vertigo, not for concussion. They were doing that moving the crystals in the ear, and I still couldn't read. I still couldn't write. I'm an author, as we talked about. My memory was worse. My language was terrible at night. The pain was less, and the noise and light sensitivity was less once the construction was complete. But my whole being as a human, I was shrunk down to living in this house. And I'm, a mom with kids in the elementary school, and I'm a volunteer in my church, and I do this and I do that. And I'm very, very active. So to be confined and housebound was so devastating to my mental health that I became severely, severely, severely depressed. And one of the hardest things was my trainer, I exercised 3 doors away at my friend's in her garage. She's a trainer. And for 10 years, I had been going twice a week to her ladies' high intensity interval class from 8:30 to 9:30. Been doing that for 10 years straight. And so when all the ladies in the minivan leave, they drive right past my house. So I could pretty much time it at 9:40 because everyone had to chat a little bit. I could sit on my TV room couch, where I basically had been spending the 8 months, in a hat and sunglasses and a blanket over my head, listening to the news. Then I could open my blanket, peek out from under it, and watch minivan after minivan after minivan after minivan go by. And to feel forgotten, no one was knocking on my door because I was gone and I was out of the system for so long. No one knocked. No one noticed, it seemed like. No one was worried about me, and I was so desperately worried about myself. What was the hell was happening? And then that I would do this to myself every Tuesday and Thursday to watch the pain. It just exacerbated, of course, but again, I had a brain injury. I had no idea. I couldn't advocate for myself. I just couldn't.
Yeah.
So that's what's so impossible about concussion, Bethany, is that I wasn't seriously injured enough to be inpatient where people were watching me. And so I was freelancing this thing, and I am the advocate in our house. I am the one who bashes down doctors' doors. I make things happen in a really polite way, but I make stuff happen, and my husband's just not that guy. So he was Googling all he could, but we just didn't find what we needed.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And I'm curious, as a therapist and having this severe depression, did you recognize what was going on? Did you get any kind of mental help?
Oh, this is the crazy part. Ready? Okay. I am a therapist. I am married to a therapist. I was seeing a psychoanalyst. So no.
Okay.
And that's why I do the bride stuff, because I was marrying a therapist too, and I was in therapy. I mean, all the stuff, what happens to you as a human being individually is you can't quite see it.
Yeah.
So, the doctors are the worst to go to the doctors. That's one of those things. So we were treating the mental health issues, I think-ish. We weren't treating the concussion because we were doing what my doctor said.
Yes.
I was being a really good patient.
Okay. And then when you did end up going to physical therapy, did they know that you had a concussion as well? Or were they just...
Yeah, that is the wrong person treated me.
Didn't know.
The wrong person treated me.
Okay. So what else? Well, I want to hear what therapies and treatments did end up helping. But before we get there, I want to hear how you mentioned some of this, like how your life changed, but how that injury and that change affected the people closest to you.
Well, in very simple ways, like we did not have any other children over to our house. My children had 0 friends over for those really 3 years, because the story goes on, because I needed a quiet house. I needed a calm house. I, my daughter was in the middle school play, and I showed up looking weird in hat and sunglasses and behaving strangely rather than the extroverted, friendly mommy that she's always had. Or things like going to get the new cleats because the kids grow out of the cleats every 5 minutes. That would wreck me for days, or I'd end up in a puddle of tears in Dick's Sporting Goods. So it affected us deeply. And then there's the marriage piece where, my husband we were angry at each other a lot because there was I'm kind of the bright light and the joy, and I wasn't that. And I was doing the bare minimum. Making the bed, I would have to rest after making the bed, or doing the laundry would kill me. There's just a lot of anger in our house and a lot of sadness. It was a very, very difficult time.
Yeah. It's the trauma for everybody. It's not just mom, right? If it's mom who's dealing with
and the loneliness mostly. So we were all lonely for each other because we would sit around here and we would joke at night, but I would sometimes say really weird things. Because my brain injury, but the language, especially at night, the language problems get worse at night. And I also want to point out, as I'm talking about all these sad things to everybody, you can hear how well I am now, right? Everyone can hear that healing does happen. Yes. I'm telling you about the darkest time of my life that went on for years and extended for years. And we have faced hardship in my family. When my kids were toddlers, I had stage 3 breast cancer. And it took 11 and a half months of treatment and 2 major surgeries and 18 rounds of chemotherapy. So we have been through a lot of hard times. And what I'd learned is this, and this is going to blow your mind. I would take that experience of 18 rounds of chemo with, you don't know if you're going to live or die. That's really hard to live with. But at least you know where you are in your treatment. I could count down 18 rounds of chemo, 17 rounds of chemo. We even had, my kids were so little, we had this sad song, 8 more days till the end of chemotherapy, 8 more days. I mean, so we sang that for the last 10 days, but we had a song and we knew when it was going to end. And plus, I would go to some chemo or some treatment and the whole pink place would surround me. Here, would you like a massage? Would you like some acupuncture? How are you? Here's a support group. Here's this. And then the NFL wears pink socks in October. I mean, breast cancer awareness is on the Campbell soup can. Concussion, because of what happened to me in my treatment, is I was alone and unsupported and solitary. So this was way more difficult than having cancer.
That does blow my mind and makes me want to cry. But also like the limbo of it, like just not knowing, like what you were saying, like you don't know what to expect. You're not getting the help. You don't know how long it's going to last or any of that. That just, it's a mind game.
And it doesn't have
to be working well either. So,
and it doesn't have to be what happened to me. That's why I do this advocacy, because what happened to me should never, ever have happened. Ever have happened. And one thing that I know we're going to get to what would you do differently, but one thing I will say right now, I think everyone should get their caregiver into a concussion caregiver support group. If my husband had gotten into one, he would have seen, oh, your person has this, my wife does too. Oh, this is a treatment you did. Oh, just to educate the caregiver, because I couldn't do it for myself. I couldn't do it for him. And for them to have people who understand how hard it is to live with someone with post concussion syndrome or whatever we're calling it these days, it's a hard, lonely thing in your marriage. And he needed support too, and he wasn't getting it. Now, we've been supported, as you can tell. My town surrounded us during the cancer, but this thing lingered for 3 years. So that support system wanes after a while.
Yeah, thank you so much for bringing that up. I really appreciate that. And I do think that's key. So anybody listening, please do that. Look for a caregiver concussion support group, because
Concussion Legacy Foundation, concussionfoundation.org, has a monthly caregivers support group. They also offer free care finding services internationally. They host my Concussed Moms Support Group. They offer 6 different support groups a month and can help you find care locally. It's plus they do incredible advocacy in media. They are changing the conversation of concussion in media, mostly through the NFL and professional sports. But hey, I'll take it. I will ride their coattails because they're doing great work.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you. We will put that in the show notes for sure. And yes, I really
tell them I sent you.
Excellent. Thank you. So let's continue the story. How did you get to the point where you can have this conversation? Because it sounds like back 8 months into it, you were not there. So
no, I wasn't there. And I still couldn't read. 14 months after the concussion, I was functioning a little more. My balance was better. I was back in life. Things didn't kill me as much. So, it was a lovely March cool day. And I joined my son on the basketball court. And we were playing because I wanted to be a good mom. I wanted to be active. And so we were playing a really fun game, which was aptly named Knockout.
No.
And of course, I got bonked in the head by the ball. But this time we went straight to the emergency room. And this very handsome doctor named Dr. Kale said, okay. I said, listen, I need something. You've got to give me something. So at that point, I got on the path to some treatment, which was glorious. And I went to a local physical therapist who was concussion specific training. Do not go to anybody else unless they are trained in concussion.
I'm nodding hard here.
This is your wheelhouse.
Yes.
Concussion specific training, and she had it. So she worked on my neck. Turns out I got whiplash. I didn't even know it. So I've been living with the whiplash for 1.5 years. She told me the reason you can't read is that your eyes aren't working together. So we started vision therapy.
Yay.
Yes. And for me, that was, I read 52 novels a year. That's just what I do. I'm a reader at night. So to me to go down to a 4th grade book and then build up was really tough. This is again mentioning the loss of self. Yes. If reading is one of your comforts, for me, going to church was a comfort. But the first time I went, the organs and the choir just made me run out crying. So what's so hard with concussion is you lose your normal supports. Okay. So we got neck, we worked on the balance, we worked on the eyes. And it was pretty miraculous. It's hard work, that vision therapy. It makes you feel like crap, but things slowly got better. So another year passes and things are slowly getting better, but I'm still having memory problems. I'm still having language problems. I'm still just not right. Still not right. Sure.
I'm curious, did you keep working through all of this, or were you working before? I don't know how.
So I was always working. I took off about 6 months after the ski accident, or this fall on the ski hill. And then I had to work only over phone because I couldn't handle the light of the screen. And then I got a blue plastic sheet to help with the screen. So then I went back on the screen. But I'm private practice, so I don't do a lot of paperwork. So that was a godsend.
Yeah, no kidding. Okay. But you were working after that 6 months of.
Yeah, but I cut out every other bit of my life. I didn't volunteer work, anything extra.
Okay. Sorry, keep going. Thank you. So it was another year you were getting back into things, but still not.
And then because I felt supported by our church, because they were the people who stayed with me. I would get those church ladies, man, they are good at the cards. We haven't forgotten you. We're thinking about you. We're thinking about you. I have a whole bowl full of cards from people who haven't forgotten me, whereas all my peer girlfriends were still driving by my house. And going, where have you been for the last 6 months? Going, oh, dude, it's been 2.5 years. I wanted to give back to my church. So when I was feeling a little bit better, I joined a search committee to find a new minister. We're Congregationalists. And it's like the white New England church, that classic church, that's what we are. And so I joined the search committee. And on the search committee, they have these ridiculous 30-page resumes with essays that you have to read. And so one day I was sitting down and read 3 or 4 of these in a row. And the next day I woke up going, and all my concussion symptoms came back. What is going on? All the light sensitivity, noise sensitivity, migraines, memory, brain sludge, going, what is happening? I had not hit my head. I am certain I have not hit my head. So that's when I got really scared. I said, okay, is this early onset Alzheimer's? Which my mother had dementia, but she was old. Do I have a brain tumor? And so some new level of terror hit me. And that's when I was functioning enough and healthy enough that I could be aggressive me. And I got myself in 2 days later, the cancellation, the Mass General Hospital neurology department. And I brought the secretary a big bunch of flowers. It really works. Being friendly on the phone really, really works. They said, can you be here in an hour and a half? And I said, we can be there. And my husband canceled his work. We got in the car and we went. And within 15 minutes, the neurologist said, your brain is fine. What? 2.5 years in, my brain is fine. It feels so not fine. And he said, because you have been so undertreated, you have been living in fight or flight for 2.5 years. This is PTSD caused by living in the dark, being undertreated, and being isolated. You've been so worried about yourself for 2.5 years that you're having memory problems, language problems, sludgy brain, and I don't know what else. But we're going to send you to a speech language pathologist and see what's going on. That's the treatment you need.
Wow.
That he said my brain was okay is remarkable. It's insane to me because I felt so not okay for so long.
So you went to speech, and how did that go for you?
It was great. I mean, I cried. I cried, this young woman at Mass General, and I had to drive in to see her. And it was a long drive, 45 minutes in, bad Boston traffic because terrible drivers here. So I walked in kind of a mess, and then we did the testing, and I found out I have executive functioning problems. I have memory problems. The language thing I learned was normal. Getting weird with language late at night is normal, I learned. All these things that I had been doing, which were traumatizing, upsetting to me, are par for the course in concussion. But I didn't know that. So we did a lot of things. But to have some data that I had executive functioning problems that I couldn't, I had been abandoning full grocery carts at the grocery for years because all of a sudden I couldn't take it anymore. But to find out that I had real measurable problems was such a relief. Such a relief.
It's so funny, not funny that, that it's such a happy thing to know, oh yes, officially I have these issues. Like, it's so validating, right? Like, oh, somebody else sees it. I am not crazy. This is real.
And there is data. We took a test and there's data. I'm a mess. All right, let's fix this.
It's official. Yes, but exactly, like, let's fix it. There are things that that you can make improvements.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I'm curious, with what is your assessment of the doctor saying that there was nothing wrong with your brain? Do you feel like that's accurate, or do you feel like, I don't know, like what he said about the PTSD and the nervous system on high alert for 2.5 years makes total sense to me. I very much believe that. But also, on the other hand, like, the concussion is a brain injury. There are things, but what's your assessment?
I think that's more evidence of neurology. I'm not a fan of neurologists after all this, because I got pretty much dismissed by him. So not a fan. Everyone always goes straight to neurologists, and I keep saying, don't bother.
You're not the person who has said that on this podcast.
Yeah, because they just don't take us seriously enough. They just don't. Maybe we're not interesting enough for them.
Perhaps.
I think there was definitely, it felt very like, on the one hand, comforting, there's nothing wrong. On the one hand, like, yes, there is, dude. Yes, there is.
Yes. But I'm glad that he got you into the SLP. That was helpful for you. It's interesting, as I talk to people and listen to these stories, and there are all these different journeys that people are on. There's so much that's frustrating, and so, like, it can feel like a setback or like invalidation. But then there are, like, because people are moving forward and trying to get help, even if it's not ideal and what they would hope, like, there are little breadcrumbs that lead to the next thing that does help. So I just want to throw that out there for anybody listening as well. Like, just keep trying, keep looking, even if you're not getting the right help at the right time. Like, things will come, and it will happen. And you're a perfect example of that, right? Like, this story is longer. It sounds like it took a lot longer than it needed to, technically, quote unquote. But it is your story and your journey, and because it was the way it was, you're so passionate about this, and you're making such a difference in the world. I think, it's really
keep
hard.
Going. Keep going. Keep trying things. Keep finding new organizations that help you. Concussion Foundation can help you wherever you live in the world. They can help you.
Oh, love that. So I want to throw this other thing out here. Super interesting point that you were doing okay. You had gotten some help, but it was getting another hit to the head that got you the help that you needed, which, like, feels like a setback, probably. Like, when it happened, I bet you were like, no, actually,
that wasn't quite it, actually.
Oh, okay. Tell me.
So the progression is, I fall January. That August, I get the treatment for vertigo. The following March, I get hit by the basketball and get vision therapy and deal with the neck and deal with the balance for the first time. 1 year later, after that, as I was rebuilding my life, I joined that search committee, and those stupid 36-page resumes triggered all my symptoms. That's when I got into the neurologist. That's when I got to SLP.
Okay. But the vision therapy made a huge difference too, right? Like, I imagine.
Oh yeah, that vision therapy, I could read.
I was gonna say, you wouldn't have been able to read to do that, to get into neurologist if you hadn't done that. It's cool how things that feel like setbacks are actually the things that propel us forward, and your recovery would have stagnated more, right, if you hadn't had those experiences that pushed you to get more help. So I just think that's an important point as well. And just in general about setbacks, that's something that I hear a lot of people talk about, how frustrating and defeating they can feel, which totally understandable. I get it. But if we can pull back a little bit and see this bigger picture, it can be actually the catapult that propels you forward. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yes, it's probably helpful to have someone else see that for you, because when a treatment doesn't work the way you hoped, you get in such despair. And that's why I think support groups are essential for anyone in concussion recovery. Is the despair piece is frightening. It's frightening to feel so depressed.
When did you, I assume you got into one. When did that come about? How did that happen?
It came about during the SLP treatment. And here's why I even knew that support groups existed. One of my treatments was to learn how to calm my nervous system. And what she said, what do you like to do? And she said, well, I'd like to bake. And she goes, no, I'm going to be having you do this 5 times a day. So what else do you like to do? And so I said, I think I like art. I don't know. My mom was an folk artist. I don't know. So she goes, okay, get a coloring book. So I grabbed one of my daughter's stress relief coloring book and I put it on the dining room table for five times a day for 15 minutes. I would set a timer on my phone. She would have me just fill in the little squares with watercolor paints. And I still have it and I look at it and it's hideous. But the relaxation I learned that I started programming into my system, I was creating new neural pathways by just doing quiet, calm art for 15 minutes a day. And so that grew. I did watercolors. I got bored with the coloring book, and then I started doing little flowers and watercolors. This is in the summer. And then at Christmas, Santa brought me some acrylic paints, and those were vibrant and full of color and full of life. And that felt more like me. And then I started going crazy with painting. And then I took an art class online. It was during COVID. And I met these lovely people. And I started building this new art community. And they said, oh, we're all on Instagram. I basically said, what's that? I've been under a blanket for 3 years. So I joined Instagram. And the reason why I joined Instagram is that I wanted to show people in concussion recovery that you could go from living under a blanket for 2.5 years to starting a new hobby with coloring books, then little flower paintings, and then really be healthy enough to take a class online. And then you learn some skills and then you start getting better and then you make new friends. So I did it as a way to promote hope for people. And then I discovered there's this awesome concussion recovery community on Instagram. If you are not on Instagram, get on Instagram now. It changed my life. I learned more on Instagram in 1 month than I learned from 3.5 years of doctors. So follow the hashtag concussion recovery. Follow me. I will tell you who to follow. My Instagram is concussion recovery art. It will change everything. And that's where I found my support group.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. And yes, I have been blown away at the amount of quality information that is out there on Instagram. And yeah, the more I've been in it, I'm like, oh, wow, this is so amazing. And so many people like you, like me, who are so passionate about helping people who are dealing with this because the word isn't getting out to people through the regular medical channels. And so this is like where people have come together, and it's really awesome. Yeah. So, okay. Well, thank you for sharing that. As far as anything else, I want to give some broad overview of things, but have we finished with where you're at with this story as far as like you were seeing SLP, that's how you got introduced to the art and the Instagram community and all of that. Has it been just continued progress from there, or like what would you say?
I have not seen a doctor or SLP or PT in 4 years. 4 years. So things grew over time. I got stronger over time. With the SLP's help, I learned a lot about, and my concussion support groups, I learned a lot about the importance of avoiding boom bust cycles where I feel good. I've been gone for 3 years. I want to do more. Oh, I want to paint. I want to paint this. And then I exhaust myself on the weekend. Then I'm a wreck for 3 days. I learned from my SLP that as a mom, I do 3 or 4 loads of laundry in a day. Every woman does. But with a concussion, the cognitive load of that, gathering it, bringing it downstairs to the basement, putting the first load in, remembering to transfer it over, going back to
it.
Yes. Separating it is torture. So I learned little different skills of separating it before. So I learned that what is for non-concussed people easy, automatic, for me took a toll. So once I learned that going to the grocery store with the bright lights and the black and white checkerboard floors and the 50,000 items at eye level going by, plus trying to remember what I needed. I mean, no wonder I was a basket case, but now I have
music in the background and the neighbors who say hi. And so many things.
But she had me create a list. I never needed a list because I was really smart. I was on top of things. I have the most killer grocery list that I modify now. I do it by season. Blueberries out of season, they come off the list. My grocery list that I have used for 4 years and modified, I follow the exact same route in my store. I walk in, I take a right, I go down that aisle, and then I go to this aisle. So I have now taken all the cognitive load of going to the grocery. It is now just a physical act. And this changed everything.
That's amazing. That's awesome. I knew that was a thing, that grocery shopping can be very challenging, but I haven't heard it specifically that down to an art. It's another art form.
And that's my but how you create that is you don't do it by yourself. My SLP had me bring my 13 or 14-year-old daughter along with me. And I just went on my regular trip. And she copied down the list of what I did per aisle. And so by the end of that, she typed it up on my computer for me. And I'm still working off and modifying it seasonally 4 years later.
That's so cool. I love that. How has this been for your kids? It sounds like she was very helpful, this daughter. Like, what have you seen? How have you seen them grow through all of this?
Well, it's interesting you ask. This is such an important question. I'm so glad you asked me. I ended up presenting to the Brain Injury Association of Massachusetts a whole hour long at their annual conference, a presentation called The Concussed Family. And I did a really brave thing. I'm choking up thinking about it. I interviewed each of them to find out what this was like for them, because this was 3.5 years of our life. This was not easy. They were courageous, and I was really brave, I got to tell you, because I didn't really want to know, but I figured other people go through this. They have to know. And for my kids, the first year was the hardest when I was the weirdest under the blanket. They were disturbed. They were disturbed by how out of commission I was, and my husband was disturbed by what little effort I was putting into my recovery. He thought I was just being lazy. I mean, he's the nicest man on the planet. So, but because I was so not my normal energetic self, and I was lying on this couch for a year with a hat and sunglasses, blanket, we were all very disturbed by me, all of us. But then as I started behaving a little more normally, the kids, the good news is they kind of forgot to some degree. Unless I would say something weird, I was not a factor. They just went on with their tween lives. And that's really good. What did help our family was my sense of humor about my language problems. That I made fun of my dumb things I said, which was frequent, helped everybody, almost everybody. My son, who was the younger one, he said, yeah, it was funny to laugh at that dumb thing you said, but it was also sad because you shouldn't be saying weird things like that. So for the older, my husband and daughter, it helped them just to be able to go make light of it, because I was making light of it. But my son has this underneath piece of it. It was painful for him too. It helped, but it was not the panacea. And then ultimately, I think the concussion, my husband and I talked about the anger we felt at each other. I was angry at him for not advocating hard for me. He was angry at me for not working harder in recovery in the beginning. But we got through that now. We really, because mostly it was about pain and love. There was a lot of pain in this house. And what I have learned through my support group is I would go to the support group, the women's support groups, and I would say, oh my God, my family, what have I done? What have I done to my children? How have I scarred them by being so strange for so many years? And a friend of mine from a support group her mom was sick her whole life, and she died when she was 11 years old. And she goes, listen, my mom was sick, always sick. She was never really healthy. But I always knew this. I could always feel her love. I knew she was always doing her best for me. She gave me whatever she could give me every single day. And that was so healing for me to hear. And that's how, I see you crying. It's beautiful, isn't it? And that's how we end each Concussed Mom Support Group, is that we all feel so terrible about ourselves as concussed moms, how we're not living up to what we want to be, how we're not able to play, how we're not able to be that fun. And I tell this story almost every time. And I ask everybody these questions. Number one, are you giving your kids your absolute best every single day? When even sometimes that means they join you underneath the blanket. And everyone nods and say, yeah, they are always giving their kids their best. And then I say, your kids can always feel your love. So even through my depression, which had suicidal ideation at times, even through my depression, I rallied for my kids. They would walk in the door, and I have this dumb thing I do. They walk in the door and I wiggle my arms and I do a little dance. That didn't stop when they walked in the door from school. I was still as much as myself as I could be. So they didn't lose me. My husband lost me a bit because I didn't work so hard for him, because I didn't need to. I mean, we are solid. And the women I also really, really worry about, the families I worry about most and that suffer the most are the ones who are the single moms with concussion. And I want to figure out, well, how to help them more, because that is way harder, because I had support. My husband could do a lot, but to be a concussed mom raising children is in the isolation of concussion is very, 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 very difficult. Or to have just moved to a new community. That's also a place where I see concussed mothers suffering a lot. They don't know people and they come in injured. And whereas I have been here for 17 years and I have a huge community that, a lot of people fell off and didn't help, but a lot of people were there because of the pre-existing relationships I already have. Yeah. So the suffering of concussed moms is so unique in concussion. That's why I created this group. I needed it. I needed it for myself.
Yeah. And there's so many people who need it. I love that you're doing that. And I appreciate you bringing up all those points. I think that it's really important for people to hear that. So thank you for sharing those things and for what you're doing to help these mamas. Yeah. Sorry. Woo. You can get through without crying because you've done it a few times. It sounds like you shared that story before. But
yeah, I do. I'm healthy enough that I do a lot of public speaking. Obviously, you can see I like it. So I present at brain injury associations. I do a lot of podcast interviews. My story is over. I am changed as a human being, and we can talk about that if you want. I am a very different person, but my value system and my advocacy, I'm so clear. And the good news is I'm actually a little bit bored with my concussion story. And I think that is a good sign of healing. I only tell it because it helps other people.
Yeah. Yes. I love that. Well, I do want to hear how you're different and what this whole thing has meant to you. The next question that I have here was what things were most helpful in discovering and loving yourself post-concussion? And I think that might play into this, but yeah, tell us your thoughts on all of that.
Well, learning from the SLP about how much cognitive, physical, and emotional energy and brain energy everything took was instrumental. So that was huge. And it helped me reprioritize and reevaluate everything. I asked myself, and I continue to ask myself, but in my recovery, my question was, is this person or this event worth getting tired over?
That's such a good question. Oh my gosh.
And sometimes you discover, wow, chit-chatting with that mean old lady on the corner, she's the one who actually taught me. I was walking the dog one night before dinner, and this mean old lady complained about some dumb town thing and was really unpleasant and took a lot of my energy at the end of the day, which is always rough for concussed people. And that's when I realized, darn it, I should not have given her an ounce of me ever again. So that person was not worth getting tired over. That I eventually, felt a little left out at not going to parties for all those years. And I went to a party and I would come home just way overstimulated and having useless conversations with people I didn't really care about. And I'd be wrecked the next day and going, wow, that was not worth getting tired over. So defining for myself who and what was worth getting tired over was really clarifying, because then you discover if you get rid of the stuff that isn't worth getting tired over, you discover, wow, that is worth getting tired over. So your value system gets really, really clear. And your relationships become really, really clear. Who is welcome to take my energy and my brain, and who is not? And what's been really painful is that a lot of people are not, even some family members who, when I got off the phone, we all have people in those lives you get on the phone with, you're like, oh, this could be a nice conversation. And you get off feeling like crap every single time they're saying something weird about you or your life or your house or your body. We all have people like that. That person is no longer welcome in my life. Is it painful? Is it awkward? Absolutely. But my brain, my body, my time, my heart, no one gets to me like that anymore. If you are too difficult for me in a truly unpleasant way, no, because I work hard every day to live this well. And if you're just giving me unnecessary crap and emotional crap to deal with, or, I thought I would always go back and exercise with the ladies who drove by me all the time. And I went back a few times and, oh my God, the noise and the music and the chit chat. And what they were chatting about was just normal suburban mother stuff. But I thought, oh my God, I don't need to know about this problem on the lacrosse team and this problem with this kid and that problem with your husband and this car you're thinking. I don't need to know any of this. So I now go to my trainer 3 doors down twice a week for 30 minutes for personal training. It costs the same. It's quiet. In the beginning, we worked on my balance. We had no lights on. We still have no music. So I've modified it to fit my needs. Is it a little lonely to not be in the gang of ladies? Yeah, it is. It absolutely is. But the good news is I have found a new community, 2 communities, the concussion community and the art community. So I'm set. It's just, it takes a little while to find your new people, but it's really good to learn who or what is worth giving your energy to.
Yeah, that's huge. That's a lesson that I think a lot of people would do good to learn in their lives. With or without concussion, this is an important thing. So that's cool that it's so clarifying, and that you found your people too. I think that's a beautiful thing and important for people to hear. Like, your people are out there. Just keep going. Yeah, I think that's so important. Thank you. And I know you've touched on this a little bit, but is there more that you'd like to share about how art has impacted your experience in your recovery?
Yeah. So I continue to have my nervous system relaxed every day by art. I have kept up the daily art because I never go into 15 or 20 minutes of art feeling worse physiologically. My nervous system settles because I'm not, it just does. So that has become part of my routine. The way exercise is part of my routine. And after COVID, I started taking classes and I met a new community of people locally. They're not in my town, but they're in the area. And it's warm, loving, laughing. But I walked into this community fully concussed, meaning I own my concussion there. I went into the second class I took there was learning how to paint portraits. By the way, never start with portraits. They're really hard. But I walked in and it was a 3-hour class. And by the end of the first class, I was in tears at the 3rd hour. And so I just modified it and said, I'm done after 2. And so I modeled, and so one of my teachers now looks at me and goes, you have modeled how to take care of yourself for me. As you are so clear about what you can do and can't, and that I'm not willing to push myself to boom and bust. I'm just not willing to do it. This place, I love it. It's called Slow River Studio. They keep trying to get me to teach classes. I don't really want to, because the cognitive toll of that right now, I don't need it. I mean, and because I have a job, I don't need to sell my art. I don't care. I just create it every day. So we have a pile of my art around the house and in the basement. It doesn't matter to me. Selling doesn't matter. It's about my healing. I have evolved from, as I said, I spent a year doing florals. And from the florals, I learned then I tried to do a portrait. And the teacher said, you've got to learn how to draw. So I took drawing classes all last fall. And cool. From there, I moved on to figure drawing. So nude figures live. There's a nude model in front of you. So I do that once a week. I moved on from nude figures. And then in January, I started doing portraits. And the reason why I'm doing the hardest thing in art, because if you're painting a landscape, you can move a tree and no one will know. But if you get a nose just a tiny bit in the wrong space, everybody knows what a face is. So this is the hardest thing in art. And the reason why I'm doing it, even though it is incredibly maddening and frustrating and humbling to be so bad sometimes, is that I see my brain healing every single day. Push I can do, the learning I can do, the concentration I now have, the focus, the ability, the frustration tolerance. All these things make me know I am healing every day. So I've grown as an artist leaps and bounds in 3 years. I can't believe what I can do. I just did a plein air painting competition this weekend, and mine was terrible, but I was surrounded by people and it was really fun. And then I had to rest for 2 days after. I had symptoms for 2 days. The symptom I only get these days is tinnitus.
Oh, interesting.
That's just my symptom that I know I'm tired. And I actually heard it just moments ago kicking on, which is fine. We've been focused for an hour now. It's just a sign that I'm getting tired, so I need to go gently. And I have nothing scheduled for the rest of the day after this with you, because I did it consciously. And then I have to go to a meeting at 6:30. So I'm going to rest and do a little art this afternoon. But this is how I live now. I heed my tinnitus. Tinnitus? I never know how to pronounce it. How do you pronounce it?
It depends on where you're at in the world. So it can go either way. So
Okay. So
yeah.
that is my signal that I've got to rest. And I listen to it. I get it every single night at about 8:30. That's fine. And sometimes after stressful events, which this is lovely, but it's like I'm really been focused.
Yeah.
It kicks on and that's all good. That's just who I am now. So we were talking about the differences, how I've changed. I'm far less social and I'm not in the mother world as much anymore. Like I don't join. I was asked to be on an auction committee. No way. I'm not giving my brain to that. And I have sort of fewer local girlfriends, but I have new rich art friends. And I have this concussion community online and all the advocacy I do in the world. So my life is so rich with art and with concussion advocacy.
It's a beautiful thing. And I have to say the occupational therapist in me was loving hearing you talk about how much art has been therapy for you. Like that is so like the things that are meaningful in our daily lives that bring us joy can be therapy. Like it is therapeutic. It is what helps us to heal. And I love that you found your thing that really has made such an impact and difference for you. So I really do love that. And again, encourage people listening, find your thing. Like daily life things are therapeutic and you can, yeah, it's a beautiful thing. So thank you for sharing all of that. And let me know if we need to pause.
No, I'm good. I have nothing to do this afternoon but walk the dog.
All right. Well, I would love to hear any advice that you have. I know you mentioned the getting caregivers their own support groups, getting them into those, but other advice that you have for people who are loving and supporting someone who is dealing with a concussion.
I really think the getting support and education for yourself is central. That's really the only thing.
Okay.
Is really the only thing. And know that being lonely, missing your adult partner is normal. Feeling angry is normal. It's a hard thing you're going through in a marriage or in a partnership. It's lonely. The loneliness is palpable. So I think just really, if the caregiver can educate themselves to what is possible for treatments and for the caregiver, you will learn that through a support group by listening to 5-10 stories and stay in the support group. Stay in it. You will learn so much every single time. I believe if my husband had gotten into a support group at the very beginning, my recovery would have been cut by years and years and years. It should not have happened. We just didn't know. And we're not dummies. I mean, it's just hard to find stuff out.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially before Instagram.
Yes.
So, yeah, no, that's important. Thank you. Anything for on the side of a parent or a child of someone who's dealing with a concussion? I assume it's probably the same. But.
Yeah, it's probably the same. Education and then figuring out who are the girlfriends, who are the family friends that will actually help in a meaningful way and use them and let them help you. And stop doing the dumb stuff. Stop doing I don't know, someone else can go help take the kids, get the cleats. Learning to really let go a little bit on some things so that you can actually be present. Playing with your kids, doing a puzzle on the floor with your kids, that is something worth getting tired over. Going to Dick's Sporting Goods and getting frustrated over cleats is not. My daughter, we went to get stage makeup at CVS and I just lost it. I had to sit on the floor. It was terrible. She could have gone with another mom that could have done that better, but I didn't have the wherewithal because of the stupid brain injury to ask somebody else to do it. So if you're doing things like that, ask your friends, ask the director of the play your daughter's in to say, who is she hanging out with? Can that person, mom, go with them to CVS to get makeup? My daughter will have a really good time and I need more help.
Mm-hmm.
So you can save yourself for the performance.
Excellent advice. Thank you. I'm curious, how did this experience impact your work? Like as a therapist, has it changed anything in how you approach therapy or how has it done that?
No, the work is pretty much the same, although I am more direct. I'm more direct as a person. I'm going, really? So being more direct is actually can be more helpful with therapists. I've also here's how it's changed. I don't like doing long-term work right now. The emotional complexity of being in a therapeutic relationship for years and years and years is I don't want to put my emotional energy there. So I've changed my entire practice around. I now do very short-term work, 3 sessions to 10 sessions, and that's it. And then I get someone new, and that's enough for them, and that's enough for me. And I also learned I used to build my own websites. Oh my God, no, I mean, just my brain can't do it anymore. And that is one thing that is not worth getting tired over. And I found some inexpensive guy somewhere, and it's good enough. It's much better than what I did. And plus it didn't wreck me.
Yes. Again, that clarity of what is important and what you're willing to put yourself out for. I think that's excellent. Anything else that you want to share with people as far as, I think you've done a really good job of explaining it, like how you're doing today, anything that you're still dealing with, or what helps keep you going?
I feel so clear and alive and happy. My value system is crystal clear of who and what is important, who and what gets my energy. And a lot of that is me. My exercise is important to me. My art is important to me. Being with people who are uplifting is important to me. Having a great marriage, which it really is. I know I was told terrible things during our concussion, but we are about to have an empty nest, and we're going to be great. I'm into my art. I do 2.5 hours of art a day. He's doing 2.5 hours of jazz piano and doing a podcast, and we're going to be great after this, even with an empty nest. I have been profoundly changed by being really clear about who and what gets my energy still. And I went to a huge family party recently there were 30 tiny little children running around. It was hideous. I will never go again. And that's sad. They were my nieces and nephews and my grandnieces and nephews. It's sad that is an unpleasant event. I get invited to the Concussion Legacy Fancy Gala every year. It's a thank you to running the support group. And I've been twice, and it's wonderful. It's fancy, and it's nice to dress up and drink and have good food and talk about concussion all night. But I got the idea. I'm not going this year because it's not worth the energy to me today. Will I feel sad that I'm not there, seeing all these now friends that I do the volunteer work for? Yeah, it'll be lonely. It will absolutely be a lonely night for me, but that's okay. It's better than having the whole weekend wrecked. So this is how I've changed. I used to push through, and now I'm choosing not to.
Yeah. And how do you deal, any advice for people who don't want to feel, I mean, it is the loneliness, the feelings that come up when you're choosing to stick to that clarity. How do you deal with that?
It's hard to become an outsider in your own life. What was my life before concussion as an active, like not quite PTO mom, but really involved, who would go out to drinks with girlfriends or go to a lot of parties? I am not that person anymore. And that all those people are still doing that in my town. And that is hard. It's just it is hard. It's a little bit lonely. But the question always is that worth my having symptoms the next day or 2 or 3? And it never is for me. So I tolerate the loneliness. And I think the art, which is completely fulfilling, finding new friends, growing in my art skills every day, because I do all these little challenges. Right now, I'm doing a 20 minutes for 20-day challenge on Instagram. So I'm doing a little black and white portrait in 20 minutes, and I post it. So I've got all these new Instagram friends from all over, some lady in Australia and some lady in England. And we don't talk, but it's a community that on Friday, when I can't go to that gala, I will probably post something, and I will get some feedback from nice people who care, from concussed people on my concussion who follow me for concussion, who go, wow, look at you go, or the art ladies people. So you find different ways of taking care of yourself. But finding that new community has been really helpful. These people don't know me unconcussed. They've watched me heal. They've also seen how much they participate, my art friends, in my healing. That I still don't really want to go to a 3-hour class, but that I can not take a break in the middle of classes anymore. They can see how they've contributed to my getting stronger. They don't know me before. And guess what? It's okay. They like me. They really like me as I am.
That's beautiful. And I think such an important thing for people to hear. So thank you. That's so important. I would love to bring up the word hope here. I'm interested in hearing how you maintained hope through this. And it sounds like it wasn't always there. So I want to hear your thoughts on hope and concussions.
Hope is hard to come by in the grim darkness, especially because I was untreated for so long. So I was trying to find it within myself. For me, what gave me clarity was having children and not wanting the suicide ideation. I wouldn't do that to them. But the fact that it was in my mind is frightening. So living in that state was very hopeless. If you are in that state, you need to get more help. You need to reach out. You need to tell people that you are feeling that helpless and hopeless. You need to reach out. You need to tell the people around you. You need to call whatever the line is. I can't remember. You can put it in the show notes. You need to tell people you're that hopeless because you need more support. I just needed support. And as soon as I found a group of concussed people who are also living my life, that's where I found the hope. Yes, it was from the professionals, the SLP and the PT, but when I found concussed people and I heard their stories and how, what's so powerful about our Concussed Moms group is that you meet somebody in the sunglasses and then 6 months, year and a half later, this same woman who is miserable in sunglasses is now going indoor rock climbing with her kids. That is hope. Being around other people who are a little further down the road than you are is hope. People graduate out of support groups because they heal, and that's fabulous. I ask people who've graduated out to return occasionally to be that hope. So it's not just me in the group. They can say, I was where you are a year and a half ago, and now I'm rock climbing with my kids. I'm reading again, whatever they're doing. So finding your people is where you will find the hope. Find a support group. Because your local brain injury association will have them. Concussion Legacy Association Foundation has them. That is your step to hope.
Beautiful. Thank you. That just reminds me of a phrase that my friend who is an SLP actually and trains people on nervous system resilience, her name is Leah Davidson. She says, healing happens in connection. And I think that's so true for our nervous system, but we do need each other. And that is where we'll gain that strength and that hope. So thank you for sharing that. I think that's important for people to hear. And as I ask this question, there's a friend of mine who has had a concussion, and we've talked about the podcast before, and she always is like, I want to know, I want to hear people's experience with how they deal with the setbacks. And we mentioned this earlier a little bit, but if you're, in the middle of the setback, you're not feeling that hope necessarily. How do you get through that? Or what has helped you when you do feel like, oh man, this feels like me taking backwards steps in my progress that I want to be moving forward with?
Is the connection of seeing other people who've tried other things and failed. Every time you try something, you will learn something about what doesn't work, but that provider will tell you something else you can try. It just keep going. That's the essential thing is keep fighting. You are worth it. Keep fighting. Your family's worth it. The people who love you are worth it. You got to keep fighting. This thing is tough. It is way harder than stage 3 breast cancer with toddlers. It is really that much harder. You've got to keep fighting because you are worth it. Your loved ones are worth it. Keep going.
Amen. Can I get an amen? That is so beautiful. And I think I just feel the passion from you in this. And I really appreciate how all this experience that you've had has lent to your being so well-spoken and putting yourself out there to try to make a difference for people. I love that. And with the, let's get out there, how people can hear more from you or connect with you or places that you recommend that they look if they are looking for help.
So looking for help, internationally, concussionfoundation.org. They have a helpline. You fill in a form, you tell them what you need, what you think you need. You will contact the loveliest, kindest people. This is what they do. The helpline has offered free guidance and support groups to 1,000 people this year. Do it.
Amazing.
Number 2, reach out to me. My website is concussionrecoveryart.com. My Instagram, where I'm daily active, is at concussion_recovery_art. And get on Instagram, follow the hashtag concussion recovery. Follow Bethany, follow there are a bunch of other providers out there. This is where you find the hope. This is where you find the friends. You need concussion buddies. Because you're isolated. I'm in this weird little town of 5,000 people. I'd never heard of anybody going through what I've been through. Everybody gets breast cancer around here. It's par for the course. Nobody. I'm a walking poster child for concussions. I wear this. I'm wearing the Concussion Legacy Foundation shirt right now. When I wear this shirt, which I do often, I help more people.
Well, and that's what I was going to say. Everybody's had breast cancer. But that's because they know about it. People are talking about it. Everybody, there's so many people who've had concussions and don't know it or don't talk about it, and they don't know where to look for help. So I love, yes, again, thank you for wearing that shirt and being out there, because yes, people need concussion buddies, and there's so many more out there than anybody knows, I think. So yes.
Yeah. And I send out, if you're wanting some hope, I can offer this. Through my Instagram, I send out free little pieces of art to anyone all over the world if you just need a piece of encouragement. I call them my keep going cards. And occasionally I meet with people on Instagram and I can see my little card on their shelf, or people send me notes saying, I look at that thing and it brings me hope. It connects me to you, and I've seen where you've gone. It's often just a little abstract piece on a really happy colored piece of paper. And on the back of it, I say, wishing you patience, strength, and hope for great concussion care. Keep going, Allison. And I don't put a return address on it. I just want to send that goodness out in the world, because I've got all this art lying around. I might as well do something good with it. And we need an anchor. It can be a little touchstone for people in those dark days. I had all those the church ladies' notes. I have those. I want to pay it forward to others who are in the darkness. And I've sent them to Australia. I've sent them to South America. I sent one to New Zealand, a bunch in Canada. I mean, I just send them. All you have to do is ask.
I love that so much. Thank you. Okay. So everybody listening, ping her. That is so beautiful. Like, what a beautiful way to use your gift and bless the world. I think that's fantastic. Thank you for that. Anything else that you want to put out there into the world before we finish up this conversation?
You are worth it. Your family is worth it. Your loved ones are worth it. If you are struggling the way and suffering the way I was without the right treatment, contact Concussion Legacy or someone local, your Brain Injury Association. They can help you, but don't wait. Do not wait a minute. And if you are the person in your house that is the advocate like I am, I bet you have a girlfriend or a friend who is of the same character. Have them do it for you. You need that person to knock down that door for you. She'll be happy to do it. And actually, it's pretty fun. I like being that person. If you can't advocate for yourself, remember your friend who can. Ask her to find stuff for you. But don't wait. Do not wait another day. Get more treatment. This can be healed. Look at me now. Hear me now. Hear my life. There is healing. It is possible. You cannot do it on your own. You need the proper help, and you need concussion buddies. So join a support group.
Beautiful. Beautifully said. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here, Allison. I'm so happy that we've made this connection, and I love what you're doing. It just lifts me up so much to see people like you who are out there to really making a difference for this community that needs it so badly. So thank you so much.
It's an honor to be here, and let's help more people. You're doing it too. Thank you, Bethany.
Thank you.
I'm so glad you listened in today. I hope you have gained some helpful insights and inspiration regarding dealing with and recovering from concussions. My goal is to create more awareness and education about concussions and the fact that there is so much that can be done to improve life after someone has had one. Help me spread the message by liking, commenting, rating, and subscribing to this podcast, and share it with others who would benefit from hearing it. There are more resources available on my website. And again, if you or someone you love would benefit from concussion coaching, sign up for a free consultation using the link in the show notes or at my website, www.theconcussioncoach.com. Thank you. See you next time, and take good care of that amazing brain of yours.